going on, guys? This is Educate in 8, where we get to talk to you. 8 minutes, that's it. 8 minutes. We know attention spans are short. And so we want to cater to the short attention span, but also give you valuable content here at Youth Ministries. And I am joined with
Titus Johnson. I'm the Illinois District Youth President and pastor of First Apostolic Church. Pumped to be here, man.
Dude, it's going to be incredible. I'm excited for this. He's in here, he's visiting, he's doing some work here, but I snagged him long enough to be able to share some wisdom with you guys.
7.5 minutes, I was told.
Yeah. That's right, because we're now hitting 30 seconds. So, Titus, why don't you go ahead and just dive right in?
Yeah, well, awesome. Thanks, guys, for clicking on this and watching this. Today, I just want to talk about having the importance of understanding who God is. If you look at the scripture, Psalm 103, and it's a scripture you're probably familiar with and probably know, but it says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name." And it goes on to say, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits." Now, the psalmist would go for another 20 verses listing out all the benefits that God has given us. But it's important for us to understand that the God that you and I serve has a very distinct nature. He's not boring. He's not dull. There's not a bland bone in his body, if you will. And there's certain ways that he acts. There's certain ways that he operates. And there's certain ways that he shows himself to us. And what we need to understand in our conversation today, first and foremost for this conversation, is the God that you and I serve is a generous God. Psalmist would also say in Psalm 68:19, "Blessed be the Lord who daily loadeth us with benefits." Another translation says, "Blessed be the Lord, O my soul, who daily loads us and gives us benefits." God is a benefit-giving God. You know, when you're starting a job and you're excited about it, you're interviewing, when can you start? One of the questions that you're always going to ask, I hope you ask your future employer, is what about the benefits? Can we talk about the benefits? And typically that's vacation, insurance, 401k, all of those things. But we should have that same mentality when we think about our relationship with the Lord. He daily loads us with benefits. We got to understand that the problem has never been in our relationship with the Lord. It's never been in his ability to give us benefits. It's been in our realization of what those benefits really are. It's been our recognition of those benefits and truly the perception of who God is. Take, for instance, Adam and Eve. They walked with the Lord in the garden. I mean, they got to experience perfect temperatures, limitless food. They would walk. They didn't have to wear Crocs or tennis shoes, no kill shots, nothing. They had barefoot and never stepped on a rock. Truly, they lived a benefit-laden life. But all it took was one conversation for Eve, one interaction for Eve. And in that singular interaction, their perception of just how generous God really was shifted in that moment. And now all of a sudden, instead of saying, man, I have all of the benefits, I have the goodness of God on display, now all they could see is the one thing that I'm lacking. This is the one thing that I'm missing out on. And we must be so mindful as young people that we recognize and we guard the generosity of God. We can't let anything, any lie creep into our life and begin to chirp in our ear that God hasn't done enough for us. He's not good enough to us. His mercy isn't enough, or I don't have this or this or this. No, we must always recognize and remember that the God that we serve is a generous God, and he blesses us. Scripture talks in Acts chapter 17. It says, "In him we live, we move, and we have our being." Everything in your life flows from God. It is because of his nature that you and I are still in existence, and he alone is the source of everything we've ever received. A scripture to always keep front of mind, top of mind for you, is James 1:17. It says, "Every good gift, every perfect gift is from above, and it cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow or turning." Once you understand that, it's not hard to put everything in its proper perspective. Once you have this image that the job that you have, whether you like it or not, is a gift from God, then it blesses that job. You see the benefits of that job. You see how thankful you are that you have that job. Once you recognize that whether it's the $3 you have in your bank account or the $300 or maybe even the $3,000. Somebody testify. Grandma and Grandpa have been good to us this year. But once you recognize that every penny that has ever come across my hand is because of the generosity of God who daily loads us with benefits, it shifts your perspective on your finances. You understand now, I'm not lacking in things. I may not have as much as the guy next to me, but truly I am not lacking anything because God has daily loaded me with benefits. He's daily been faithful to me for all of my benefits. Once I recognize and understand that He's God and we're not, He's the author and we're not, He's the master and I'm not, He's the owner and I'm not, it shifts our perspective. And it's a conversation that we have to have. We must have this at a young age. As a teenager, you must begin to have this conversation with your youth pastor, have this conversation with your parents. If your parents are in a place that they can't have this conversation with your pastor where you can come to them and say, listen, I have this burden on my finances. I've been blessed with these finances. Now I'm starting to understand that these are my benefits. Now how do I operate with that? How do I share that? How do I give? Of course, there's biblical principles that we believe we can follow, and we'll talk about in just a moment. But just having that open and earnest conversation that this is something that I have a passion for, I have a burden for, because I'm now in a position to recognize just how generous God has been to me. If God is so generous and He daily loads us with benefits, since He's so generous, we should be thinking, now how do I respond to that?
I think that's incredible, and it really is indicative of that one verse that talks about He is the vine and we are the branches, is we must stay connected to the source that gives life, that gives breath, that blesses us.
Yeah.
And I think learning how to be a good steward of the source giver.
Yeah.
What, when He gives us, when He blesses us, what do we do then? How do we manage that? How do we be a good steward of what God is blessing us with? And I think we'll talk about that more in the next episode. And I appreciate you sharing these thoughts. That was incredible.
Well, that's exactly right. We'll talk, but it is because He's so generous, we have a response that we must give.
Yeah.
We must respond to a generous God. And how do we respond?
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate
Absolutely,
it.
man.